I think maybe that was my error. Was what I seem to need to do is to go into, yeah, there we're going now. I need to go into YouTube Studio and basically create or tell YouTube Studio that I'm going to be doing a live stream, and then once that's been done, then I can start broadcasting. So, guys, we are now live on Telegram. The Telegram feed is being recorded, and we're also live on YouTube. That is all good. So let's just put up the link tree first of all, like that. So the link tree is where you can find all the content on the different social media channels, and you can access that at linktr.ee/CheapSkateStreamer, linktr.ee/CheapSkateStreamer, and as you can see there, we have links to Telegram, Rumble, X, Kick, DLive, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and then finally the option to buy me a coffee. Guys, yesterday we spent a bit of time talking about the disappearance of Gaynor Lords, and some of the similarities between that case and the case of Nicola Bulley. I had a little look before coming on here, and so far I see no, there doesn't appear to be any real new information. The latest thing appears to be that the police are saying that they've got some indications as to why she left work early, although there doesn't appear to be any more information being put out in the public domain at this time. She seems to have, to be honest, she seems to have either spoken to a few people, or indeed she seems to have acted in a fairly remarkable way, in as much as in a way that would get her noticed. And I suppose there are a couple of possibilities to that. It could be that she was intending to walk in front of CCTV, for instance. Was she intending to draw attention or act in a way that would be memorable to certain members of the public? Or indeed, was this some kind of mental health crisis? It's kind of unclear at this time, but it's an interesting story. It's one that I'll be keeping an eye on. Moving on, guys, to this morning's content. First up, we've got Kitty Hopkins, and she says here, it's bizarre. There's people out there who are naive enough to think that the COVID inquiry, or actually COVID-19 inquiry, people think these politicians are actually under pressure. It's a pantomime preceding sign up to the WHO pandemic treaty. Now, I'm interested to know what that actually is, and I'm not sure, but I wonder, when she talks about the WHO pandemic treaty, is she talking about the WHO's international health regulations? I feel that she might be, but I'm not too sure. She mentions COP28 in a hashtag here as well. Guys, let's hear what Katie has to say. Let's start at the start. It's always a good place to start. Sorry. Let's put the sound on. Okay.
Another day here in batshit bonkers Britain, and it's all kicking off over at COP28, where it turns out the UAE, which is known for its fossil fuels and oil production, has not been as keen as the greenies and the climate loons might have hoped at taking coal and oil off of the agenda. I mean, who'd have even thought it? Caroline Lucas was on hand, crying into her quinoa, telling us that they're looking for a different kind of host for COP29, somebody that sits in the dark and sucks on the arse end of a locust and has never had sex in their lives. Good luck finding that person. In other news, Heather Mills, much loathed ex-wife of Paul McCartney, has just had her business go into administration. It's V-Bites, that company that makes sausages that aren't sausages but looks like sausages but are actually made from cardboard that's grown with chemicals in a lab. Yeah, who knew that that wouldn't be popular? Either which way, those people out there making jokes about the fact she doesn't have a leg to stand on or her accountants are stumped by what they've seen need to take a good hard look at yourselves. And then finally, the COVID inquiry rumbles on. And it's bizarre. There's people out there naive enough to believe that this COVID inquiry is actually an inquiry. People are lapping up this KC lawyer who's very posh but says swear words like cunt. And they love it. They're watching because they think Boris or Rishi is actually under pressure, and they're missing the whole point. It's not actually a COVID inquiry, it's just a pantomime. And these politicians are all acting their part. This is just the step before signing up to the WHO, the World Health Organization pandemic treaty in May 2024. But if you're imagining this COVID inquiry is a real thing, well, God bless you and call me a conspiracy theorist, but let's chat again in May when it's proven that I'm right. Anyway, another day here in batshit bonkers Britain. Go to it. Good people, do your worst.
Yes. So Katie Hopkins is on Twitter at KT Hopkins. Well worth a follow in my opinion. Have I actually followed her? I wonder. I'm sure I probably have, but if I haven't, we could do that now. Yes. Right, moving on. Here is Dr. McHonk Honk. This is one of our Northern Ireland special broadcasts, if you like. He's also well worth a follow. So this little clip is promoting Dr. Dave's book. That's Dave McCartland. And as he says here, he's delighted to have the Pfizer prayer in there. So there's a link there for the publication on Amazon. Let's actually just look that up. I'm curious to see how much does it retail for. Okay, so according to Amazon, you can get that for $4.99 on Kindle. You can get it for $12.94 paperback. And it's called A Doctor's Despair. But yeah, let's go back to the video. And hear what hear what he's got to say. So I'll just drop it back to the start again.
In Dr. David Cartland's A Doctor's Despair, you'll find my very own Pfizer prayer in memory of all those poor, terrified sods who were sacrificed to the Pfizer gods. Pfizer, Pfizer, in you I trust, even if my heart doth bust. And if my heart doth burst in two, it would have burst much worse, if not for you. Strokes and clots and MND are harmless side effects of thee. Shingles, tingles, death and blindness, all products of your endless kindness. Rapid cancers, chronic pain, I will risk my life for Pfizer's gain. Inoculate me now against the evil ISIS, the Russians, and the climate crisis. My rock, my strength, there's none that's wiser than you, my omnipresent Pfizer. Amen. A persons.
So yeah, Doctor McHonk, as I say, a Northern Ireland speciality. I'm not sure exactly how to describe the good doctor there. He is very creative, I suppose we could say that. He has put out plenty of little songs and various role plays and that sort of thing. Often with Monkey Boy and indeed others. If you want to follow that one, it is at the Eyes 2002 on Twitter.
And Dr.
Let's just move along there. Next thing I have for you is a little article from the Mail Online, revealing something that has been in the public domain before, but which I feel is worth mentioning again, because not everybody really appreciates the fact that, well, as it says here, RAF intelligence officers joined Whitehall and Army in spying on COVID lockdown critics, including David Davis and Peter Hitchens. So this is actually published on the 10th. But let's see what it has to say. So the RAF intelligence officers joined a shadowy Whitehall operation accused of spying on members of the public who criticised COVID lockdown policies, the Mail on Sunday can reveal. Official military documents obtained by this newspaper show that analysts from RAF Witten in Cambridgeshire helped to scar social media posts by the public. The MOS, what's that now? The Ministry of State? I'm not too sure. MOS. Maybe, I'll tell you what, actually, maybe that should be MOD. S and D are right next to each other on a QWERTY keyboard. Let's go with MOD, that would make more sense. The MOD revealed in January how the Army's Secretive Information Warfare Brigade, I think they're talking about the 77th Brigade. The Information Warfare Brigade, as they've been titled here, was tasked with scrutinising online posts, an activity the Ministry of Defence in public repeatedly denied doing. Right, okay, I wasn't aware that they had actually denied it. I know that somewhere along the line it was admitted that they were doing it. And I mean, in fact, there was a guy who I think is an MP. Has he not got some sort of a link to it? Off the top of my head, Tom Tugendhat or something. It's a strange name, but I thought he had some kind of a link to it. Perhaps he'll be mentioned if we read on. Now, this newspaper can show that the military's assistance to government cells such as the Counter Disinformation Unit, based in the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, also known as DCMS, and Rapid Response Unit in the Cabinet Office was far more extensive than previously thought. It's interesting to see the Cabinet Office getting a mention here, because I know in the past on UK Column News and perhaps elsewhere, they have alluded to what appeared to be a bit of a phenomenon during lockdown when Parliament was not actually sitting in Parliament, and they suggested that in fact the country was being run from the Cabinet Office briefing rooms rather than from Westminster. So it's interesting. It seemed as if there was a handful of people who had their own agenda, certainly in the Cabinet Office, who appeared to be directing things for the whole of the rest of the country, and indeed even for Parliament. Right, let's see what's said here anyway. Dossiers were compiled on public figures, including Tory ex-Minister David Davis, pictured, so that's him there. That's Peter Hitchens. Peter Hitchens, pictured, was monitored after sharing an article based on leaked NHS papers, which claimed data used to publicly justify the lockdown was incomplete. What's the issue there? Peter Hitchens is, well, I'm not sure if he's a journalist, but he certainly appears as a commentator quite a bit. And where information has been leaked by a whistleblower, if it is thought to be in the public interest, that's part of a journalist's role to bring that to the public. So there should be no problem with that. However, as we know, it didn't fit with the agenda. So let's read on. These Whitehall outfits were tasked with tackling disinformation and harmful narratives during the pandemic. Harmful to what? Harmful to the narrative. Harmful to the official narrative, maybe, is what I should say. Their activities have faced fierce criticism after it emerged they also collected legitimate social media posts questioning government lockdown policies. Exactly. This was legitimate, basically fair comment. Dossiers were compiled on public figures including David Davis, who questioned the modelling behind alarming COVID death toll predictions, and the MOS's Peter Hitchens. So that's the Mail on Sunday, is it? The Mail on Sunday's Peter Hitchens. The documents reveal defence chiefs privately conceded the military's work for the government could pose a potential presentational risk of defence spying or conducting psyops on the UK. But the MOD feared that if the armed forces did not help the government's online monitoring, then harmful misinformation and disinformation could spread. It was going to spread anyway because it wasn't misinformation. A lot of it was the truth, and that is to some extent what is being exposed in the COVID cover-up. COVID inquiry. So Jake Herfoot of the campaign group Big Brother Watch last night branded Whitehall's use of military personnel as an attack on freedom of speech and behaviour befitting an authoritarian state. He added, the revelations that the RAF as well as the Army spied on the British people during the pandemic is yet more evidence that the MOD misled the public about the role of its PSYOPs troops in 2020. I mean, why is there any surprise here? There's a little photograph at, I presume that's the entrance to RAF Witten. Not sure which aircraft that is there. No doubt it's one that probably was based there back in the day. So, official military documents obtained by this newspaper show that analysts from RAF Witten in Cambridgeshire, that seems incomplete there, but maybe it's because I've zoomed in. The Mail on Sunday revealed in January how the Army's secretive Information Warfare Brigade was tasked with scrutinising online posts. These documents prove that Whitehall officials knew deploying the military to monitor social media posts from politicians, journalists and the press would look like spying, but they carried on anyway. The RAF and Army's assistance to Whitehall is detailed in documents outlining official requests known as military aid to the civil authorities. These are normally used by the government when military help is needed to respond to natural disasters. The papers also show how in 2020 the government was considering a dramatic expansion of the counter-disinformation unit by ordering monitoring of online chatter about Brexit and the NHS. Mr. Herfoot last night demanded that the COVID inquiry also investigate how the government monitored the British people. Peter Hitchens was monitored after sharing an article based on leaked NHS papers which claimed data used to publicly justify the lockdown was incomplete. An internal rapid response email said Mr. Hitchens wanted to further an anti-lockdown agenda and influence the Commons vote. The government said online disinformation is a serious threat, which is why in the pandemic we brought together expertise from across government to monitor disinformation about COVID. These units used publicly available data, including material on social media. They did not target individuals or take action that could impact the ability to discuss issues freely. A lot of people would dispute this idea that they did not take action because a lot of people had remarked on the fact that where they had gathered a degree of a following, all of a sudden new information that they were putting in the public domain did not appear to reach the people it was intended for anywhere near as quickly as it normally might have. And indeed some people even found that after they had put posts up that they themselves had difficulty locating those posts, and that seems to point to the use of shadow banning and other nefarious techniques that can be used to rather than actually deleting something off social media, they can suppress it instead. It's nearly worse in a way, because you think you've got a voice, but actually in reality you're being gagged, but you don't know you are. In the first instance at least. So moving on, we've got a little post here from Wide Awake Media. This is on Twitter, and as you can see there, it says Bill Gates praises China's brutal and authoritarian response to COVID. In their typical, fairly authoritarian way, they did a very good job at suppressing the virus. There may have been a lot of individual rights that were violated there, but the overall effect that they achieved is kind of amazing. Translation: in order to prevent future pandemics, the West needs to adopt the dystopian and authoritarian ways of China. Like the conspiracy realists have been telling us all along, China with its social credit system, CBDCs, that stands for central bank digital currencies, digital ID, and all-encompassing biometric surveillance state is the blueprint for what our unelected globalist overlords intend to roll out in the West, if we allow them to, that is. So there's a little YouTube source link there, but I think we'll just watch what Bill has to say here on this platform. I'm not going to put Billy Goat's full screen. My apologies to anybody that wanted to see him full screen. But yeah, he's big enough, I think.
In their typical, fairly authoritarian way, they did a very good job of suppressing the virus. There may have been a lot of individual rights that were violated there, but the overall macro effect that they achieved is kind of amazing. They had the benefit that it was really Hubei, 60 million people, and they brought in the health resources, 1.4 billion, and their ability to build hospitals very, very quickly and force compliance with masks and various other things. But they've kept the virus numbers to very low levels compared to most countries.
Do you think the fact that China went into this very strict lockdown very quickly set the tone for the way other countries responded? Because that was not really part of the epidemiological playbook before.
No, you're absolutely right. I live in infectious diseases and how you stop them. And so when we were first talking about the shutdown, I was like, wow, we're really going to do this. Are people really willing to do this? How much productivity are we going to lose by doing this? So that day we sat there in early March and said, okay, no one comes to the foundation offices, and they haven't been since. We were talking with Microsoft about it, and they did the same thing. I remember thinking, gosh, I wish we'd practice for this because it's such a novel idea. And so I think, yes, that influenced things. The idea that you would just let it rip, nobody really did that. Even Sweden, that people call out, did ask for behavioral change. They didn't do pure bans quite as much. And during the epidemic, there have been periods where it looked like their approach was smart, then it looked like it wasn't smart. That still swirls around to this day about the relative health and economic effects that they experienced versus other countries.
Wow. I don't think I've ever seen him talk about Sweden and the fact that their response to COVID was completely different. To be honest, what he said there is slightly misleading in my opinion from what I've heard about Sweden. My understanding was that they didn't actually enforce anything. My understanding is that they made people aware of what was being put out there about COVID. Obviously, shops and other retail outlets would have stocked the masks and things. But schools remained open. Businesses, as far as I'm aware, remained open. And, the Swedish response doesn't appear to have led to any more harm than was seen elsewhere. So, people that suggest that we should have locked down earlier and harder have obviously not considered what happened in Sweden and the fact that they were no worse off than what we were. So where is your justification for locking down earlier and harder? There is none. It's fiction. Look at Sweden. Anytime anybody says lockdown earlier and harder, your response should be Sweden. Go and look at what they did in Sweden. They didn't do that, and they are just fine. Okay, this little tweet here from Raymond. I don't know Raymond, but in response to the post here on fortune.com, he says he'll take the traffic accident. He reckons his chances of survival are much greater. So it says here people who skipped their COVID vaccine are at higher risk of traffic accidents, according to a new study. The findings could justify changes to driver insurance policies, the authors say. I wonder is there a link there? I suspect perhaps not. No, it's just a photo. I am curious to know what that's about. I wonder, can I... Right, let's just type that out quite quickly. People who skipped their COVID vaccine at higher risk of traffic accidents, according to a new study. I will put fortune.com as well, just because that's where that's alleged to be from. Okay, so here we are. This appears to be from December last year. We'll accept the cookies on this occasion. Oh, what else are we getting thrown up here? I hope this isn't going to be a paywall again, because that really does my head in. That image actually is a bit rare. That looks like an ambulance worker leading into the car there, and I can't understand why that would be. Oh, I see. Maybe it's because we're talking about a car crash potentially. Right. Okay, what's wrong with this picture? Look at the steering wheel relative to the height of the driver. Or is this supposed to be a left-hand drive car and it's just the angle it's been taken from? I'm not too sure. She appears to be holding her neck as if she's been involved in some sort of a smash. Yet we see no visible damage, no particular injury. She's not paying any attention to the ambulance worker. The airbag, if there is one, has not deployed. And quite frankly, she looks as if she's just had her hair and makeup done. Right, sorry. Moving on. What does the article actually say? Well, it says if you passed on getting the COVID vaccine, you might be a lot more likely to get into a car crash. Or at least those are the findings of a new study published this month in the American Journal of Medicine. During the summer of 2021, Canadian researchers examined the encrypted government-held records of more than 11 million adults, 16% of whom hadn't received the COVID vaccine. They found that the unvaccinated people were 72% more likely to be involved in a severe traffic crash in which at least one person was transported to the hospital than those who were vaccinated. That's similar to the increased risk of car crashes for people with sleep apnea, although only about half that of people who abuse alcohol, researchers found. It seems as though they're trying to make, they're trying to almost make not taking your COVID jab twice as socially unacceptable as people who drink and drive. That's one interpretation of what that last bit just said there. Okay, let's continue reading. The excess risk of car crash posed by unvaccinated drivers exceeds the safety gains from modern automobile engineering advances and also imposes risks on other road users, the authors wrote. Of course, skipping a COVID vaccine does not mean that someone will get into a car crash. Instead, the authors theorize that people who resist public health recommendations might also neglect basic road safety guidelines. Goodness, this really is a hit piece, isn't it? So if you didn't get your COVID jab, why the hell would you bother putting on a seatbelt? Is that basically what they're trying to say? Why would they ignore the rules of the road? Distrust of the government, a belief in freedom, misconceptions of daily risks, faith in natural protection, antipathy toward regulation, poverty, misinformation, a lack of resources, and personal beliefs are potential reasons proposed by the authors. This thing is quite frankly risible. The findings are significant enough that primary care doctors should consider counselling unvaccinated patients on traffic safety. What the hell? Alright, let's just see what they say. So they should consider counselling unvaccinated patients on traffic safety, and insurance companies might base changes to insurance policies on vaccination data, the authors suggest. Well, guys, a year later, let me suggest that, yes, insurers might want to look at vaccination data, but for different reasons. They might want to look at it because of the fact that people who have been vaccinated in some places appear to be dropping like flies, and arguably that may put you at greater risk of an accident than this absolute nonsense. And yes, if you have been vaccinated, insurers may well want to increase your insurance premium due to the fact that you represent a increased risk on the road. But let's get on and read what the actual article says here. First responders may also consider taking precautions to protect themselves from COVID when responding to traffic crashes, the authors added, as it's more likely that a driver is unvaccinated than vaccinated. This is absolute nonsense, and it is absolutely the case that first responders have always been advised to wear PPE, and that goes right down to the level of the fluorescent jackets and stuff like that. In more recent times, FFP2 masks, the blue surgical things, have they have been suggested to be worn. The reality is that they are not PPE. There is actually a specific type of PPE known as RPE, respiratory protective equipment, and that of course is your N95s and your FFP3s. So back to the article. The findings suggest that unvaccinated adults need to be careful indoors with other people and outside with surrounding traffic, the authors concluded. This isn't the first time that researchers have examined the link between behaviour and vaccination status. Among young adults, a 2021 study published in the Journal of Bioeconomics found a correlation between self-reported risky driving and having skipped their flu vaccine. It examined the survey responses of more than 100,000 Canadians. Wow. That really is quite shocking. Right, let's leave that. I don't think I'll be back to that site anytime soon. Here's a little post by David Curtin. I think, is David Curtin MP? Perhaps not. He is the Heritage Party leader. So let's just bring that back to the start. Actually, I don't think there's maybe necessarily very much benefit in hearing the audio here, but basically this is footage from the last 3-4 years, 3 years I suppose, basically from people who I think for the most part are TV presenters, and as I say, they appear to be dropping like flies.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer.
Good Morning America is brought to you by Pfizer.
CBS Health Watch sponsored by Pfizer.
Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer. Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
And now a CBS Sports Update brought to you by Pfizer.
Meet the Press Data Download brought to you by Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer.
On how to find the hidden sugars in the American family diet. Sponsored by Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer.
There we're back to the start again. So lots of people collapsing there. Why should that be? Right, guys, I'm going to close out this morning with a couple of more light-hearted images. So here's a little cheeky one. It says, fun fact, a majority of archaeologists are women due to their natural ability to dig up the past. That's a little bit sexist, I have to say, so we'll move quickly on. This one I thought was pretty good. I'm trying to get it big enough so as you can read it. But hey Spock, what starts with W and ends with T? Yes it does, says Spock. To which Kirk is left thinking, yeah, that was not exactly what I meant. And finally, this one says, this quote from The Matrix feels relevant. You have to understand most of these people are not ready to be unplugged, and many of them are so inured, so hopelessly dependent on the system that they will fight to protect it. And you've got Morpheus passing on some wisdom there to Neo from The Matrix. Guys, that is it for this morning. That is it for this week. My next broadcast will be on Sunday evening at 9:30, and if you're free then, please consider joining me. As I say, Sunday evening 9:30 on Telegram, t.me/CheapSkateStreamer. Thanks for your attention this morning and during this week. Yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed for some good news as regards Gaynor Lloyd by Sunday evening. Have a good weekend, guys, and catch you then.